One of the reasons we were created, along with worshipping Allah and obeying the Prophet peace be upon him, is to be guardians of the earth. The Prophet peace be upon him said, "The earth is green and beautiful, and Allah has appointed you his stewards over it." This earth is an Emaanah from Allah, and as Muslims it's our responsibility to ensure that we take good care of it and protect it from all sorts of harm, so that our future generations can enjoy it just like we did. Unfortunately, this Emaanah is getting harder to uphold because of the many things that threaten our planet, one of them being global warming and climate change. If global emissions continue on their current path, it's estimated that by the year 2100, global temperatures will have increased by around 5 degrees Celsius. While this may not seem like a huge change, this small rise in temperatures will have severe consequences, ones that are already becoming apparent. Higher temperatures mean more frequent and more severe natural disasters, from storms and hurricanes, to heat waves that cause forest fires and droughts, to melting glaciers and ice, which lead to a rise in sea levels. Every year, these disasters continue to increase in frequency and severity. Climate change is also responsible for climate refugees. These are environmental migrants that are forced to flee their homes due to disasters or other weather-related events. In some areas, rising sea levels cause coastal flooding, forcing people to move inland. And in many developing countries, droughts and wildfires lead to a scarcity of resources, leaving people with no choice but to move. The limited resources are often fought over, and the conflict displaces even more people. It's hard to estimate how many climate refugees there are globally, but according to the UN, there could be roughly 200 million climate refugees by 2050, a number that's alarmingly high. But we're not the only ones suffering the consequences of climate change. We share this planet with other creation of Allah, and unfortunately climate change also has severe impacts on them. In many cases, more so than us. Many animals are already nearing extinction, and unfortunately the list just continues to grow. Climate change can directly harm animals while also destroying their habitats. As temperatures rise, flowers bloom and produce pollen earlier in the spring, well before bees are ready to feed on that pollen. This mismatch in timings negatively affects the health of the bees, making them less likely to reproduce. Without bees, we won't have pollination, and without pollination, we won't have most of the plants and crops that we do today. The Arctic is warming about twice as fast as the global average, causing the ice that polar bears depend on to melt away. This loss of sea ice makes it harder for polar bears to hunt and survive. Climate change affects everyone and everything, and unless we act now, we may not get the chance to later. So what exactly can we do to combat climate change? There are a number of things that each one of us can do to reduce our carbon footprint and do our part in combating climate change. Saving resources like water and electricity is a great place to begin. Avoiding extravagance and rather reusing items is another great method to reduce your carbon footprint. These practices are not only beneficial for our planet, but they're also encouraged in Islam. Biking, busing, or carpooling to work are also great ways to reduce the amount of emissions you produce while driving. And switching to more energy efficient appliances is another very easy and effective method to reduce your carbon footprint. If you have the means to, you can also switch to renewable sources of energy for your home or work office, and you can even replace your old car with a newer high gas mileage or electric car. Your individual action, regardless of how big or small, can have a positive impact on the environment. However, individual action isn't enough to combat climate change. Climate change is a global problem, and therefore it requires global action. This is where social activism comes into play. According to the Quran, an essential characteristic of believers is their participation in publicly enjoining good and forbidding evil. By being socially active, you can help raise awareness on the current environmental situation so that others can also be encouraged to make change. You can raise awareness through protests and demonstrations, or even through social media. This not only allows others to be aware of climate change and its severe consequences, it also shows the government that we do care about climate change and that they need to step in and address the issue. Supporting organizations that are working towards combating climate change is also very important. Many organizations are working towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions or researching and developing more efficient renewables. By supporting these organizations, you can also be a part of the cause and help to combat climate change. You can support these organizations by volunteering for them, or funding their operations, or even simply by sharing their work with others. Then there's voting. The government has the power to make policies that can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, so voting for the right political candidate is very important. This doesn't mean that you have to vote for the Green Party of your country. It just means that you should vote for a political party that cares about climate change and is willing to do something about it. One of the best tools we have to reach zero greenhouse gas emissions is technology and innovation. From more advanced carbon capture techniques, to more efficient renewable energies, or newer batteries that can revolutionize energy storage for renewables. But innovation takes time, and unfortunately, we don't have much left. However, by bringing small changes into our daily lives, we can set the clock back and give innovation the time that it needs. The less fossil fuels we burn today, the more time we give innovation to catch up. It's important to remember that regardless of how big or small your contribution is, every small bit matters and every small bit adds up. Allah looks at your efforts, not at the result. The future holds uncertainty, and we don't know what's to come next. Maybe the cost of renewables will decrease, making them more beneficial. In fact, that's already happening. Or maybe world leaders will start to get more serious about climate change. That too seems to be happening. Or maybe nothing will change and greenhouse gas emissions will continue increasing as they are today. Regardless of what happens, there's one thing everyone can agree on. If we don't act now, whatever's to come next will be much worse.